Your wife is 7 months pregnant, Mr. Park. She's been using her maiden name for all appointments. Nala Davis. She's scheduled for an ultrasound in examination room 4, right now." Jin Park's whiskey glass shattered in his hand. Blood dripped onto the mahogany desk of his private office, the kind of office where billion-1 deals were brokered and death sentences were signed, but he didn't even feel the pain. His lieutenant, Yi-won, took a cautious step backward, suddenly realizing he might have just signed his own death warrant by delivering this information. "What did you just say?" Jin's voice was dangerously soft, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. "The investigator found her 3 days ago. She's been living in Itaewon under her maiden name. She owns a rare bookshop. Yi-won swallowed hard. "She's very pregnant, sir. The timeline matches. 6 months since she left. The baby is yours." For 6 months, Jin had torn Seoul apart looking for her. For 6 months, he'd called in every favor, threatened every contact, burned through millions trying to find the woman who had walked out of his life without a word. The woman he'd been too proud, too cold, too stupid to appreciate until she was gone. And now she was pregnant. With his child. And she hadn't told him. Jin stood so abruptly his chair crashed backward. Blood from his cut palm left marks on everything he touched, the desk, the door handle, the elevator button, but he didn't care. His entire world had narrowed to a single mission: get to that hospital before she disappeared again. "Drive," he ordered as they reached his car. "Now." Yi-won didn't ask questions. He'd worked for Jin Park long enough to know when his boss was beyond reason. And right now, Jin looked like a man who would burn the entire city down if it meant getting to her. The drive from Gangnam Tower to Gangnam Medical Institute should have taken 20 minutes in traffic. Yi-won made it in 12, running 3 red lights and nearly causing 2 accidents. Jin didn't notice. His mind was replaying every moment of their last fight. The night Nala had stood in their bedroom, his bedroom, in his penthouse, wearing his ring, and told him she was done. "I can't do this anymore," she'd said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her beautiful face. "I can't be married to a ghost. You look at me like I'm furniture, Jin, like I'm something you own but don't particularly care about." He'd been in the middle of reviewing contracts for a weapons shipment. He hadn't even looked up. "Don't be dramatic, Nala. You have everything you need." "Except you," she'd whispered. And then she was gone. He'd let her go because his pride wouldn't let him chase, because men like him didn't beg, because he'd convinced himself that she'd come back once she realized how good she had it. She never came back. And now he knew why. The car screeched to a stop outside the medical institute's entrance. Jin was out before Yi-won could put it in park, his bloodied hand leaving prints on the pristine glass doors as he shoved them open. The receptionist looked up, saw his face, and wisely said nothing as he strode past her desk toward the VIP elevators. Behind him, he heard Yi-won smoothly explaining that Mr. Park had an emergency, that he was expected, that there was no need to call security. Jin didn't wait for clearance. He pressed the button for the 4th floor, the obstetrics wing, and the doors slid shut. His reflection stared back at him from the polished elevator walls. He looked like hell. His suit jacket was gone, left somewhere in the office. His white shirt was spattered with blood from his cut hand. His hair, usually perfectly styled, was disheveled from running his fingers through it. He looked like a man coming apart at the seams. The elevator chimed, 4th floor. The doors opened onto a hushed corridor that smelled like expensive cologne and sterile antiseptic. A nurse at the station looked up, her eyes widening at the sight of him. "Examination room 4, Jin said, not a question, a command." She pointed wordlessly down the hall. Jin's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears as he walked. Each step felt like walking toward judgment, toward reckoning, toward the moment he'd have to face what he'd thrown away. Room 4 was at the end of the corridor. The door was partially open. He could hear voices inside, a woman's voice, professional, calm, saying something about measurements and development, and then another voice, softer, richer, the voice that had once whispered his name in the dark, that had laughed at his rare jokes, that had told him she loved him even when he couldn't say it back. Nala's voice. "Everything looks good," she was asking. "Very good," the doctor replied. "Baby's heartbeat is strong, growth is right on track, you're doing wonderfully, Ms. Davis." "Ms. Davis, not Mrs. Park." She'd erased him completely. Jin pushed the door open. The scene that greeted him punched all the air from his lungs. Nala was reclined on the examination table, and Jin's first coherent thought was that pregnancy had made her absolutely devastating. Her plus-size body, the curves he'd worshipped in private but never defended in public, had transformed into something goddess-like. Her rich brown skin seemed to glow from within, luminous against the stark white of the hospital gown. The fabric stretched across her full breasts, which had always been generous but were now even more pronounced. Her thick thighs were bare from where the gown had ridden up, and he could see the way they pressed together, soft and strong. But it was her belly that destroyed him. Round and prominent and absolutely undeniable, it rose from her frame like a declaration. The swell of it stretched the thin hospital gown taut, and he could see the dark line that had appeared down the center, that pregnancy line he'd read about once in a book he'd never admitted to buying. She was fuller everywhere. Her hips, already wide and perfect, had spread to accommodate the baby. Her arms, thick and strong, cradled her belly protectively. Even her face had softened, her cheeks rounder, her features carrying that particular ripeness that came with growing life. She looked like fertility itself, like abundance, like everything his cold, clinical family had taught him to dismiss as excessive or undisciplined. She looked like home, and he'd thrown her away because he'd been too much of a coward to tell his mother that the size of his wife's body was none of her damn business. Dr. Kim had frozen mid-sentence, the ultrasound wand still pressed to Nala's gel-covered stomach. Her eyes darted between Jin and her patient, clearly calculating the social dynamics at play. And Nala's eyes met his, and the world stopped. He watched her hand move instinctively to cover her belly, watched the way her thick arm curved protectively over the swell, and he hated himself for making her feel like she needed to hide from him. "Get out," she said, her voice was steady, cold, nothing like the warm woman he'd married. Jin's feet wouldn't move, his eyes traced over her body, memorizing, cataloguing every change. The way her collarbone was still visible despite the weight she'd gained, the fullness of her upper arms that he'd loved to grip when he was inside her, the generous spread of her hips on the examination table. He'd spent 2 years with this woman, and never once told her she was perfect exactly as she was. Another unforgivable sin. "You're staring," Nala said, and there was something raw in her voice, vulnerable, as if she expected his disgust. "I know," Jin breathed. "I can't stop." Her eyes narrowed. Don't what? Don't look at me like that, like you." She turned her face away. "You made your feelings very clear about my body, Jin. You don't get to pretend now." "I never." "Your mother called me fat at every family dinner for 2 years, Nala interrupted, her voice shaking now. "She made comments about my portions, about my dress size, about how I was letting myself go and not representing the family properly. And you sat there, silent, every single time." The ultrasound wand clattered to the floor. Dr. Kim's hand was shaking so badly she couldn't hold it anymore, and not because of any medical emergency. It was because Jin Park had crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside the examination table. At this angle, he was eye level with Nala's belly. He could see the stretch marks that had formed in silvery lines across her brown skin, badges of honor that she'd probably spent hours worrying over, could see the way her belly button had popped out, could see the gentle movement as the baby shifted inside her. "I was a coward," Jin said to her stomach, because he couldn't bear to see the pain in her eyes. "I was raised to believe that showing preference was weakness, that defending you would make me look weak to my family, that if I just stayed neutral, everyone would eventually accept you." "Neutral," Nala's laugh was bitter. "You chose silence, which meant you chose them." "I chose wrong." His hand hovered over her belly, trembling, asking permission he didn't deserve. "Nala, I chose wrong about everything. I thought keeping quiet would protect you. I thought if I didn't engage, they'd eventually stop. I didn't realize I was just letting them destroy you slowly instead of defending you loudly. You let your mother tell me I needed to lose weight if I wanted to give you healthy children," Nala whispered. "Do you remember that? It was at the New Year's dinner. She said it right in front of everyone. And you." "I changed the subject," Jin finished, the memory like acid in his throat. "I talked about business instead of telling her that you were perfect, that your body was none of her concern, that any child of yours would be blessed regardless of what you weighed." Nala's hand was still covering her belly, but he could see tears sliding down her temples now. "Do you have any idea what it's like?" she asked quietly. "To carry extra weight in a country that treats thin as the only acceptable size, to be black and plus size in spaces that already don't want you, and then to have the man who's supposed to love you act like your body is something to be tolerated instead of celebrated." "No," Jin said honestly. "I don't, but I know what it's like to realize I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud to admit my family was wrong, too weak to stand up to my mother, too stupid to see that you were leaving pieces of yourself behind every day just to survive in my world." His hand finally settled on her belly, gentle, reverent, and the baby kicked directly into his palm. The sound Jin made was broken, awed, destroyed. "She's big," Dr. Kim said softly from the corner, clearly trying to ease the tension. "Healthy weight, strong heartbeat. Ms. Davis has been taking excellent care of herself and the baby." Jin's eyes snapped to the doctor. "We don't know yet," Nala said quickly. "Dr. Kim just uses she as a default. We haven't asked about the gender." But Jin wasn't listening anymore. His other hand had joined the first, both palms spread across Nala's belly, feeling the solid reality of his child. His eyes traced the beautiful roundness of her, the way her body had expanded to nurture life. She was thick everywhere now, her thighs pressing together, her arms soft and strong, her breasts heavy and full. Every curve was more pronounced, every soft place softer. She looked fertile and powerful, and like everything he'd been taught to think was too much, but had secretly craved every moment of their marriage. "You're more beautiful now than the day I married you," he said, and his voice cracked on the words. Nala sucked in a breath. "Stop. You are, look at you. Look at what your body is doing. Growing our child. Being strong enough to do this alone because I was too weak to deserve being part of it." "Jin, I'm not done." His thumb traced a stretch mark, following the silver line with devastating gentleness. "I should have told you every day that you were perfect. I should have told my mother the first time she made a comment that if she couldn't respect my wife's body, she wasn't welcome in our home. I should have worshipped every inch of you instead of making you feel like you had to shrink yourself to fit into my world." Nala's breath was coming faster now. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to say all the right things now when it's too late." "It's not too late." "Yes, it is." Her hands came up to push his away, but he held firm, not controlling, just refusing to let go. "I spent 2 years trying to be small enough for you, literally and figuratively. I tried to lose weight even though my body was healthy. I tried to speak less, take up less space, be less asterisk much so that maybe you'd look at me the way you're looking at me now." "I always looked at you this way," Jin said fiercely. "Every time you weren't watching, every time you were asleep next to me and I could let myself really see you without my armor. I was obsessed with your body, Nala, the thick curve of your hips, the weight of your breasts in my hands, the way your thighs felt wrapped around me. I just never told you because I was raised to think that wanting you that much made me weak." "Well, congratulations," Nala said, tears streaming freely now. "Your silence made me feel unwanted instead." The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if protesting the tension. Jin leaned forward and did something he'd never done in 2 years of marriage. He pressed his forehead against Nala's belly and let himself break. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her skin. "I'm so sorry. For every dinner I stayed silent, for every comment I didn't shut down, for making you feel like you had to earn the love I should have been giving you freely. For not telling you that every curve, every soft place, every inch of you was exactly what I wanted." Nala's hands hovered over his head, clearly torn between pushing him away and pulling him closer. "Why now?" she asked. "Why are you saying all of this now when you had 2 years to say it before?" Jin lifted his head, and his eyes were red-rimmed. "Raw. Because losing you taught me that pride is worthless if you're alone, that my family's approval means nothing if I don't have you, that I would burn down everything I've built if it meant getting one more chance to do this right." "You can't just—" "I'm not asking you to forgive me," Jin interrupted. "I'm not even asking you to come back. I'm telling you that I know I failed you. I know I let you down in every way that mattered. And I know that you grew our baby inside this beautiful body while I was too stupid to be there for it." His hands pressed firmer against her belly, feeling another kick. "But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. And if it takes the rest of my life to prove that I see you, really see you, every gorgeous, powerful, perfect inch of you, then that's what I'll do." Nala stared at him, and for a moment Jin thought she might actually believe him. Then her expression shuttered. "You see me now because I'm carrying your child," she said coldly, "not because I'm worth seeing on my own." "That's not." "Get up, Jin." "Nala." "Get up." Her voice had gone flat, emotionless, the voice she used when she was protecting herself from him. He rose slowly, his hands sliding reluctantly off her belly. Dr. Kim cleared her throat. "Mr. Park, I need to finish the examination, and Ms. Davis needs to remain calm. Her pregnancy is high risk." Jin's entire demeanor changed in an instant. "What?" "It's nothing," Nala said quickly, but Jin was already moving into the space between her and the doctor. "What do you mean high risk?" His voice had dropped into that dangerous register, the one that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Dr. Kim looked at Nala, clearly asking permission to share medical information. Nala closed her eyes. Of course this was how he'd find out. Of course there'd be no clean exit, no simple goodbye. "There's a complication with the placenta," she said finally, her hand going protectively to her belly again. "It's positioned too low. If it doesn't move up on its own as the baby grows, I'll need surgery." The room went very, very quiet. When Jin spoke again, his voice was absolutely steady, absolutely lethal. "What kind of surgery? Where? When? Who's the best surgeon?" "Mr. Park." "Who is the best surgeon?" Jin's composure shattered. He rounded on Dr. Kim with an intensity that made the poor woman take a step back. "Money is no object. Resources are unlimited. Tell me who can fix this." "There are only 3 surgeons in Asia qualified for this particular procedure," Dr. Kim said carefully. "Dr. Chen in Hong Kong, Dr. Nakamura in Tokyo, and Dr. Hayes at Seoul National University Hospital." Jin's jaw clenched. He knew those names. Dr. Chen worked at a hospital where Jin's organization had significant financial stakes. Dr. Nakamura owed him favors dating back 5 years. And Dr. Hayes. Dr. Hayes was the younger brother of Alexei Hayes, head of the Russian syndicate that controlled Seoul's port district. His rival. "When does she need the surgery?" Jin asked. "We're hoping it resolves naturally over the next few weeks, but if not, within 2 weeks maximum. Any later becomes dangerous for both mother and baby." 2 weeks, Jin turned back to Nala, and something in his expression made her heart pound. "You need me," he said simply. "I don't need anyone." "You need me," he repeated, "because I can get you the best care, the best surgeon. I can make sure you and our baby get through this safely." "At what cost?" Nala asked, because with Jin Park there was always a cost. His smile was thin, sharp. "We'll negotiate terms." "I'm not one of your business deals." "No," Jin agreed. "You're the mother of my child. You're the woman I was stupid enough to lose. And you're the only person in this world I would destroy everything for." The way he said it should have been romantic. Instead, it sounded like a threat. Or a promise. Or both. Nala's hand went to her belly again, and she made a decision that she'd probably regret. "Get out," she said. "I need to think." "How long?" "I'll contact you when I'm ready." "Nala." "You owe me this," she said quietly. "You owe me the space to decide on my own terms whether I want you in our lives, whether I trust you with our baby, whether I believe you've changed, or if this is just another version of you trying to control something you think belongs to you." Jin stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a card, his personal number, the one only 5 people in the world had access to. He placed it on the examination table beside her hip, his fingers lingering for just a moment on the generous curve there. 24 hours, he said. "After that, I'm making decisions for both of you whether you like it or not, because I've already lost you once by being passive. I'm not making that mistake again." And then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him with terrifying finality. Nala sat in the sudden silence, both hands on her belly now, her mind racing. Because what Jin didn't know, what she hadn't told him, what she couldn't tell him, was that she wasn't just hiding from him. She was hiding from the prosecutors, who were building a case against his entire organization. She was the star witness that could send him to prison for life. And in 2 weeks she'd have to choose, her baby's life or her husband's freedom. Dr. Kim picked up the fallen ultrasound wand, her hands still shaking. Ms. Davis, are you all right? Nala looked at the monitor where her baby's heartbeat still pulsed, steady and strong, and completely oblivious to the impossible choice forming around it. No, she whispered, one hand sliding over her rounded stomach, feeling the weight of her body, the weight of her decisions, the weight of everything she was carrying, literally and figuratively. I'm really not. Nala didn't go home after the appointment. She couldn't, not when home was a tiny studio apartment above her bookshop in Itaewon, a space that suddenly felt far too exposed, far too easy to find now that Jin knew she was in Seoul. Instead, she sat in a cafe 3 blocks from the medical institute, her hands wrapped around a cup of decaf tea she wasn't drinking, and stared at the business card Jin had left behind. The card was simple, expensive, black with silver embossing that caught the light, Jin Park and a phone number, nothing else, no title, no company name. People who needed to know who Jin Park was already knew. People who didn't know were better off staying ignorant. Nala's phone buzzed. She didn't need to look to know it was Agent Michelle Torres from the prosecutor's office. The woman had been her handler for the past 4 months, ever since Nala had walked into the International Criminal Court's Seoul branch and offered to testify against the Park crime family in exchange for protection. The phone buzzed again, insistent. Nala finally looked. Torres, check-in required. You missed your 2 p.m. window. Torres, Ms. Davis, protocol requires contact every 12 hours. Please respond. Torres, if I don't hear from you in the next hour, I'm sending a team to your location. Nala typed quickly, I'm fine, had a medical appointment, everything's okay. The response was immediate, we need to meet. Tonight, usual place, 8 p.m. Nala's hand went to her belly, feeling the baby shift. The usual place was a private room in a restaurant in Hongdae, nowhere near Itaewon, nowhere near her bookshop, nowhere Jin would think to look. Except now Jin knew she was pregnant. Which meant he'd be looking everywhere. Fine, she typed back, 8 p.m. She had 6 hours to figure out what she was going to tell Agent Torres, 6 hours to decide if she was going to mention that Jin had found her, 6 hours to weigh her options in a situation where every choice felt like betrayal. Her phone buzzed again, but this time it was an unknown number. Her heart stopped. She knew that number now, had memorized it from the business card even though she told herself she wouldn't. Jin, you have 23 hours left. Jin, don't make me come find you again. Nala's hands trembled as she typed, stop texting me. Jin, no. Jin, I spent 6 months respecting your space. Look where that got us. You're pregnant, in danger, and you didn't tell me. Jin, those days are over. You don't get to decide that, she typed furiously. Jin, watch me. Jin, Dr. Kim gave me your due date, March 15th. That's 8 weeks away. 8 weeks for that placenta to move or for you to need surgery. Jin, I've already made calls. Dr. Chen can be in Seoul in 48 hours if needed. Dr. Nakamura in 36. I don't want your help, Nala typed. The response took longer this time. When it came, it was a single sentence that made her breath catch. Jin, our baby doesn't care what you want, they care about surviving. Let me help them survive. Nala stared at the message, hatting how easily he'd found her weak spot, how quickly he'd pivoted from talking about them to talking about the baby. Before she could respond, another message came through. Jin, I'm having your apartment secured. Extra locks, security system, my men will be watching the building. Absolutely not, she typed. You don't know where I live. Jin, 47 Itaewon Row, 3rd floor above, Rare Pages Books. You've been there for 5 months. The landlord is Mr. Kim Sung-ho. Your rent is 3 months behind because you've been saving for baby expenses. Nala's blood ran cold. You've been watching me. Jin, no, I've been looking for you. I only found you 3 days ago. But now that I have, yes, I'm watching, I'm protecting, I'm making sure nothing happens to you or our child. That's called stalking. Jin, that's called being a father. Nala wanted to throw her phone across the cafe, wanted to scream, wanted to cry. Instead, she took a slow breath and typed, if you actually cared about being a father, you'd respect my boundaries. Jin, I respect your life more than your boundaries, and right now your life is at risk. From the placenta complication, which is medical, not criminal. There was a long pause, then, Jin, is there something else I should know about? Nala's heart hammered. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, no. Another pause, longer this time. Jin, you're lying. I'm not. Jin, Nala, I've negotiated with warlords and politicians. I know when someone is hiding something. What aren't you telling me? She didn't respond. Her phone rang, Jin's number. She rejected the call. It rang again immediately. Rejected. Again. On the 4th call, the barista looked over with concern, clearly noticing the plus-size pregnant woman who was having some kind of crisis in the corner booth. Nala answered. Stop calling me, she hissed into the phone. Then stop lying to me. Jin's voice was tight, controlled, dangerous. What's going on, Nala? What are you afraid of besides the medical situation? I'm afraid of you, she shot back. I'm afraid of being pulled back into your world. I'm afraid of our baby growing up thinking that violence and crime and power are normal. I'm afraid. She cut herself off, but it was too late. You're afraid of my world, Jin repeated slowly. Nala, you left because I was emotionally unavailable, because I didn't defend you to my family. Those are personal failures, but you're talking about my world like it's dangerous to you specifically. It is dangerous, you're a crime lord, Jin. Everything about your life is dangerous. Yes, but you knew that when you married me. You knew what I was. What's changed? Everything, Nala thought. Everything has changed because I'm not just your unhappy wife anymore. I'm the witness who's going to destroy you. I have to go, she said. Nala, 23 hours, right? I'll call you before then. Don't hang up. She ended the call and immediately powered off her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to set down her tea before she spilled it all over herself and her maternity dress, a soft purple wrap dress that accommodated her belly and her curves, but suddenly felt far too conspicuous. She needed to move, needed to think, needed to figure out how she was going to explain to Agent Tors that her cover was blown without explaining how spectacularly blown it actually was. Nala stood carefully, one hand supporting her lower back where the weight of the baby had started causing persistent aches. The barista smiled at her, that particular smile people gave pregnant women, especially visibly pregnant plus-size women, that somehow managed to be both patronizing and judgmental at the same time. When are you due? The barista asked brightly. March, Nala said shortly, heading for the door. Oh, you're carrying big, must be a boy. My cousin was huge with her son. Nala let the door close on the rest of that sentence. She was used to it by now, the unsolicited comments about her body, the assumptions about her baby's size and gender based on how she was carrying, the way strangers felt entitled to comment on her pregnancy as if her body was public property. It had been worse in the early months when she was just starting to show, when people couldn't quite tell if she was pregnant or just fat, and she'd caught the sideways glances, the assessment in their eyes. Now at 7 months there was no ambiguity. Her belly was unmistakably round and firm and full of life, but that didn't stop the comments. If anything, it made them worse. The walk back to her apartment took 15 minutes, long enough for Nala to notice the black sedan parked across from her bookshop, long enough to see the man in the driver's seat doing a very poor job of pretending to read a newspaper. Jin hadn't been exaggerating. He really had put security on her building. Nala's jaw clenched as she walked past the car, deliberately not making eye contact, and unlocked the side entrance that led to the stairs up to her apartment. The climb was harder now than it had been even a month ago. By the 3rd floor she was breathing heavily, one hand on the railing, the other supporting her belly. She unlocked her apartment door and froze. Someone was inside. Not Jin, she would have felt his presence immediately, but someone had been here. The air smelled different, colder, clinical. Her laptop was exactly where she'd left it on the small dining table, but the angle was wrong. Someone had moved it, searched through it maybe. Nala's heart raced as she moved through her tiny apartment. Her bedroom was untouched, the bathroom was fine, but her bookshelf, the one where she kept her rare first editions, her pride and joy, had been disturbed. And tucked between a 1960 edition of To Kill a Mockingbird and a signed copy of Beloved was a manila envelope that hadn't been there this morning. Nala pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were photographs. The first was of her leaving the prosecutor's office 2 weeks ago. The second was of her meeting Agent Tours at a cafe in Hongdae. The third was a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a distance of her testifying in a closed session. She was seated at a table, her hand on a Bible, her face serious. And beneath the photos was a note in handwriting she didn't recognize. Your husband doesn't know yet, but he will unless you do exactly what we say. Nala's knees buckled. She caught herself on the edge of her bed, her free hand going protectively to her belly as the baby kicked, sensing her distress. This wasn't Jin's doing. Jin would have confronted her directly. Jin didn't operate through anonymous threats and blackmail. Which meant someone else knew. Someone else had been tracking her. Someone else knew she was the witness. Her phone, still powered off in her purse, suddenly felt like a bomb. She pulled it out, turned it on, and waited for it to boot up, her heart hammering the entire time. When it finally connected, there were 7 missed calls from Agent Tours and a single text message from another unknown number. Unknown, the baby is beautiful. Shame if something happened before she was born. Nala couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't. The baby kicked again, hard enough to make her gasp. And suddenly, Nala's choice became crystal clear. She opened her recent calls and pressed Jin's number. He answered on the first ring. Nala, I need you, she said, her voice shaking. Right now, someone's threatening the baby. Someone knows about. She cut herself off. Just come, please. I'm at my apartment and someone's been inside and I need. I'm already moving. Jin's voice had gone absolutely cold, absolutely lethal. Lock your door, don't open it for anyone except me. I'm 10 minutes away. Jin, 10 minutes, Nala. Hold on for 10 minutes. The line went dead. Nala sat on her bed, both hands on her belly, and waited. She could hear the baby's heartbeat in her ears, or maybe it was her own, she couldn't tell anymore. Could feel the weight of her body, the heaviness of her breasts, the tightness in her lower back, the persistent ache in her hips that came from carrying extra weight plus a growing baby. Could feel the terror of realizing that her body, this body she'd fought so hard to accept, to love, to defend, was now the only thing standing between her baby and whoever had just threatened them. A car screeched to a stop outside. Footsteps pounded up the stairs, multiple sets moving fast. A knock on her door, sharp, commanding. Nala, it's me. She opened the door. Jin stood there with 3 men she didn't recognize, all of them armed, all of them scanning the hallway like they expected an attack at any second. But Jin only had eyes for her. He took in her face, pale beneath her brown skin, eyes wide with fear, and crossed the threshold, his hands going immediately to her shoulders. Are you hurt? No, eyes. The baby's. Fine, the baby's fine, but Jin, someone was in my apartment and they left. She thrust the envelope at him. Jin's expression didn't change as he flipped through the photographs, didn't react to the image of her at the prosecutor's office, or meeting with Agent Tours or testifying. But his hands tightened on the envelope, crinkling the edges. When he looked up, his eyes were black, empty, the look he got right before he killed someone. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? How long have you been working with the prosecutors, Nala? Her breath caught Jin. How long? His voice cracked like a whip, making her flinch. 4 months, she whispered. I've been their witness for 4 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Jin stared at her, and Nala watched in real time as he processed what that meant. Watched him calculate timelines, remember conversations, realize that she'd been planning to destroy him even before she knew she was pregnant. What did you tell them? He asked. Everything, Nala said, because there was no point in lying now. Shipment routes, financial structures, names. I told them everything I knew about your organization. Which is considerable. It wasn't a question. Yes. Because you were my wife. Because I trusted you with information I've killed people for knowing. Yes. Jin's laugh was harsh, bitter. And here I thought you left because I wasn't emotionally available. Turns out you left because you were building a case against me. That's not, Nala started, but Jin cut her off. When do you testify? The trial starts in 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Jin repeated, the same timeframe as your due date. I didn't plan it that way. Didn't you? Jin's eyes were hard. Pregnant witness makes for sympathetic testimony. Hard to cross-examine a woman who's about to give birth. Perfect timing, really. That's not fair, Nala said, tears burning her eyes. I didn't even know I was pregnant when I first went to them. I found out 2 weeks after I entered protection. By then, I was already committed. And you didn't think to mention it? To maybe reconsider sending the father of your child to prison for the rest of his life? You deserve to be in prison, Nala shouted, her hands going protectively to her belly. You've killed people, Jin. You've trafficked weapons. You've destroyed lives. And you loved me anyway, Jin shot back. Or was that a lie too? I loved who I thought you were, Nala said quietly. And then I saw who you really were, what you really did, and I couldn't be part of it anymore. Jin's jaw clenched. For a long moment he just stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then he looked at the photographs again, at the threatening note. Someone else knows, he said finally, his voice back to that dangerous calm. Someone else has been watching you, someone who's threatening our baby to get leverage. I know, which means it's not just my organization you need to worry about anymore, it's whoever sent this. Jin pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. I'm moving you, tonight, somewhere secure where no one can get to you. I can't just disappear, Nala protested. I have check-ins with Agent Tours, I have protocols. Your protocols just got you threatened, Jin interrupted. Your protection just got compromised. Someone in the prosecutor's office is leaking information, Nala. How else would anyone know where you live, know about your testimony? Nala's blood ran cold because he was right. The only people who knew about her witness protection were the prosecutors and… Oh God, she whispered. Agent Tours wanted to meet tonight, at 8 p.m. What if it's not actually her? What if whoever sent this is setting a trap? Jin's eyes sharpened. Where? A restaurant in Hongdae, private room in the back. Text her back, tell her you can't make it, tell her you're sick, tell her anything but don't go to that meeting. If I don't show up, she'll send people to check on me. Good, Jin said coldly. Let's see who shows up, my men or hers. He turned to the 3 armed men still standing in her hallway. I want this building locked down, no one in or out without my approval, full security sweep of every apartment, find out who was in here and how they got past my surveillance. Jin, you can't just… I can and I am. He turned back to her and his expression softened slightly. Nala, someone just threatened our baby. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you're planning to testify against me. Right now, the only thing that matters is keeping you and our child alive long enough to figure out who's behind this. And then what? Nala asked. After we figure it out, after the threat is gone, what happens when the trial starts and I have to choose between your freedom and justice for your victims? Jin's smile was cold. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but first we keep you breathing. He pulled out his phone again and made a call. Dr. Kim, Jin Park, I need a private medical team at a secure location within the hour, full obstetric equipment. My wife is 7 months pregnant with a placenta complication and I'm moving her tonight. Yes, I'm aware it's irregular. I'm aware of that too. Dr. Kim, I'm not asking. He ended the call and looked at Nala. Pack a bag, essentials only, we're leaving in 20 minutes. I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me where. My private estate in Pyeongchang, 2 hours north of Seoul. Secure, isolated, medical facilities on site. That sounds like a prison. That sounds like the only place I can guarantee your safety, Jin countered. You want to stay here, stay in this apartment where someone broke in and left death threats, be my guest, but I'm taking our baby somewhere safe whether you come along or not. You can't take our baby, they're inside me. Jin's expression turned absolutely feral. Then I guess you're coming too. Nala stared at him, her heart pounding, her hands protective over her belly, and realized she was completely trapped. Either she went with Jin to his secure location and put herself under his control, or she stayed in Seoul and risked whoever was threatening her baby, or she went to the meeting with Agent Tours and walked into what might be a trap. There were no good options. There were only different versions of danger. Fine, she said finally. I'll go to Pyeongchang, But I'm calling Agent Tours from the road. I'm not disappearing without telling someone where I am. Agreed, Jin said. But you're using a burner phone I provide. Your current phone is compromised. How do you know? Because if I were tracking you, that's the first thing I'd bug. Jin held out his hand. Give me your phone. My tech team will scrub it and return it once it's clean. Nala reluctantly handed over her phone. Jin passed it to one of his men. Full diagnostic. I want to know every piece of software on there, every access point, every vulnerability. Report to me within the hour. The man nodded and disappeared down the hallway. Jin turned back to Nala. Pack now. She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, wanted to do literally anything other than submit to being controlled by the man she'd left 6 months ago. But the baby kicked again, and Nala remembered the note. Shame if something happened before she was born. She went to pack. The drive to Pyeongchang should have been beautiful. 2 hours through mountain roads, leaving behind the light pollution of Seoul for the kind of darkness that came with elevation and isolation. The kind of darkness where you could actually see stars. Nala didn't see any of it. She sat in the back of Jin's armoured SUV, her hands folded over her belly, staring at nothing while Jin made call after call in rapid Korean, too fast for her to follow completely, but she caught enough words. Secure perimeter, medical team, background checks, leak investigation. He was orchestrating her protection like a military operation. And she hated how safe it made her feel. Drink this, Jin said, interrupting her thoughts. He held out a bottle of water and a protein bar. When's the last time you ate? I'm not hungry. That wasn't the question. His voice was firm but not unkind. The baby needs nutrition even if you're too stressed to feel hungry. Drink, eat. Nala took the water bottle, if only to avoid arguing. The protein bar sat in her lap, untouched. Jin's eyes tracked the movement, but he didn't push. Instead, he leaned forward and spoke to the driver. Status. No tails, sir. Route is clear. ETA 45 minutes. Jin nodded and settled back in his seat. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the radio as Jin's security team communicated positions. Then Nala spoke. Why Pyeongchang? Jin glanced at her. It's remote, defensible. The estate has medical facilities I had installed after my father's stroke 3 years ago. Full hospital-grade equipment, staff quarters for a live-in medical team, everything you and the baby might need. You're talking about it like a bunker. It is a bunker, just a very comfortable one. Nala's hand tightened on the water bottle. How long are you planning to keep me there? As long as it takes to neutralize whoever threatened you. And if that takes weeks, months, what if it takes until after the baby is born? Jin's jaw clenched. Then that's how long it takes. I have a life, Jin. I have a business. I have. You have a target on your back, Jin interrupted sharply. You have someone who knows you're a protected witness, knows where you live, and is threatening our unborn child. So forgive me if I don't prioritize your bookshop over keeping you alive. Nala flinched at the harshness in his tone. Jin noticed, his expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to imprison you, Nala, I'm trying to protect you. There's a difference. Is there, because from where I'm sitting, it feels like you're making all the decisions, and I'm just supposed to comply. Would you prefer I ask nicely, while someone puts a bullet in you? I'd prefer you treat me like an equal partner in this situation, instead of a problem to be managed. The words came out louder than she'd intended. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, then away again. Jin leaned closer, his voice dropping low. You want to be an equal partner? Fine, tell me everything. Who have you been in contact with at the prosecutor's office? Who knows the details of your testimony? Who has access to your schedule, your location, your medical information? Nala's breath caught. Agent Tours, her supervisor, District Attorney Cho, maybe 2 or 3 other prosecutors on the case, that's it. Names. Jin, Names, Nala, if we're partners I need names. She rattled them off, hatting how easily she gave up the information, hatting how quickly she'd shifted from protected witness to Jin's informant. Jin typed everything into his phone. Anyone else, friends, people at your bookshop, customers who seemed too interested. No, I didn't make friends. That was the whole point of witness protection: stay isolated, stay invisible. Clearly that didn't work. Jin's tone was dry. Someone found you anyway. Your investigator found me, Nala pointed out. Maybe your organization isn't as secure as you think. Jin's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? I mean, maybe the leak isn't in the prosecutor's office. Maybe it's in yours. Maybe someone in your organization found out you were looking for me, found out why I left, and decided to use that information. The silence that followed was heavy. If that's true, Jin said slowly, then I have a traitor in my inner circle. You've killed people for less. Yes, Jin agreed coldly. I have, and I will again if anyone in my organization put you at risk. Nala should have been horrified by how casually he said it, should have recoiled from the violence implicit in that statement. Instead, she felt something darker, something protective and fierce that whispered *good. She pushed the feeling away. I need to call Agent Tors, she said. Changing the subject, you promised I could. Jin pulled a phone from his jacket pocket, a sleek burner untraceable, and handed it to her. Make it quick. Don't tell her where you are, just that you're safe and you'll contact her when you can. Nala took the phone and dialed the number she'd memorized. Agent Tors answered on the second ring. Ms. Davis, you're calling from an unknown number. I know, I had to ditch my regular phone. Someone found me. What? Tors' voice sharpened. What do you mean someone found you? Are you safe? Where are you? I'm safe. I can't tell you where I am right now, but I'm safe. Someone broke into my apartment, left photographs of me at the prosecutor's office, threatened the baby. She heard Tors curse in Spanish. Ms. Davis, you need to come in immediately. We'll put you in a federal safe house. No, Nala said firmly. Jin's eyes were on her, dark and unreadable. I can't do that, not right now. Whoever found me knew things only people in your office should know, which means either there's a leak or… There is no leak, Tors said sharply. Our security is airtight. Then how did they find me? Silence. Agent Tors. I don't know, Tors admitted, but I promise you we will investigate every aspect of this case. In the meantime, you need protection, professional protection. Not, she paused. Ms. Davis, where exactly are you right now? Nala glanced at Jin. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you right now. Ms. Davis, if you've made contact with Jin Park. I haven't, Nala lied and hated how easily it came. I'm with a friend, someone he doesn't know about, someone who can keep me safe until we figure out who leaked my location. Another pause, longer this time. The trial is in 6 weeks, Tors said finally. We need you, Ms. Davis. Your testimony is the cornerstone of this entire case. Without you… I know, Nala interrupted, and I'll be there, but right now I need to protect my baby. That's my priority. I understand, but… I'll call you in 72 hours, I promise, but right now I need to disappear for a bit. Ms. Davis. Nala ended the call and handed the phone back to Jin. She didn't believe you, Jin said. I know. She's going to investigate, try to find you. I know that too. Jin studied her for a moment. You just burned a bridge with your protection detail to come with me. Why? Nala's hand went to her belly. Because whoever threatened my baby doesn't care about legal jurisdictions or federal protection. They cared enough to find me despite witness protection, which means they're either very connected or very desperate. Either way, I needed… She cut herself off. You needed what? Jin pressed. Nala met his eyes. I needed someone who fights as dirty as they do, and like it or not, that's you. Something flickered in Jin's expression. Not quite triumph, not quite relief, something darker and more possessive. Smart choice, he said quietly. The SUV turned off the main highway onto a private road. Trees pressed close on either side, their branches forming a canopy overhead. Nala caught glimpses of high stone walls through the darkness, security cameras mounted at intervals, the glint of razor wire. This is your estate, she asked. This is the outer perimeter. The main house is another kilometer in. Another kilometer of private road, private land, private everything, completely isolated from the outside world. Nala's chest tightened. The road curved and suddenly the house came into view. Calling it a house was like calling the ocean a puddle. The estate sprawled across a hillside. Traditional Korean architecture blended seamlessly with modern security features. Stone and wood and glass, all designed to look elegant while being fundamentally impenetrable. Lights blazed from inside, warm and welcoming, despite the fortress-like exterior. The SUV pulled up to the main entrance, where a woman in medical scrubs waited with 2 other staff members. Jin was out of the vehicle before it fully stopped, moving around to Nala's door and offering his hand. She ignored it and maneuvered herself out of the seat, awkward with her belly, difficult with her tired body, but she managed. The woman in scrubs stepped forward. "Mrs. Park, I'm Dr. Song. I'll be overseeing your medical care during your stay." "Ms. Davis," Nala corrected automatically, "not Mrs. Park anymore." Dr. Song's eyes flicked to Jin, then back. "Of course, Ms. Davis. If you'll follow me, I'd like to do a preliminary examination. Make sure the stress of travel hasn't affected the baby." Nala wanted to argue, wanted to say she was fine, that she just wanted to sleep, that she didn't need another exam after the disaster at the clinic earlier. But the baby kicked, and she realized she actually did want to make sure everything was okay. "Fine," she said. Dr. Song led her inside, through a foyer that was bigger than Nala's entire apartment, down a hallway lined with artwork that was probably worth more than her bookshop, and into a room that had been converted into a full medical suite. Examination table, ultrasound machine, fetal monitor, IV stand, emergency equipment. "This is excessive," Nala said. "This is thorough," Dr. Song corrected gently. "Mr. Park was very specific about the level of care you should receive. Now if you'll change into this gown, we can get started." Nala took the gown and stepped behind the privacy screen, struggling out of her dress. The gown was soft, expensive, and absolutely would not close properly over her plus-size frame. She heard Dr. Song make a small sound of dismay. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Davis. I'll get a larger size immediately." "Don't bother," Nala said, coming out from behind the screen. "I'm used to it. Hospital gowns are never made for bodies like mine." "That's unacceptable," Dr. Song said firmly. "Give me 2 minutes." She left and Nala stood there in the too small gown, feeling exposed and vulnerable and hatting it. The door opened again, not Dr. Song. "Jin." His eyes went immediately to the gown that gaped open at her back, showing the full curve of her spine, the thick softness of her body that the thin fabric couldn't contain. "Get out," Nala said. "Dr. Song asked me to bring this." He held up a much larger gown, clearly custom-made, designed to actually fit a plus-size pregnant woman. "She keeps them on hand for patients who need them." He crossed the room, his movements careful, controlled. When he reached her, he didn't hand her the gown. Instead, he held it open. "Turn around," he said softly. "Jin, let me help you, Nala." There was something in his voice, something raw and almost pleading. This man who commanded armies and controlled empires was asking permission to help her into a hospital gown. Nala turned. She felt Jin's hands, warm, steady, untie the too small gown and let it fall. For a moment she was completely bare from the waist up, her back exposed to him. She heard his breath catch. Then the new gown settled over her shoulders, soft and warm and actually large enough to cover her properly. Jin tied it carefully, his fingers gentle on the fabric. "Thank you," Nala whispered. "You shouldn't have to thank me for basic decency," Jin said. "You should have never been in a position where a hospital gown didn't fit in the first place." He stepped back as Dr. Song returned. "Much better," Dr. Song said approvingly. "Now let's check on that baby." Nala climbed onto the examination table, easier with the step stool Dr. Song provided, and lay back. The ultrasound gel was cold, the wand pressed against her belly, and suddenly there it was. The heartbeat. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump. Strong, steady, perfect. "Everything looks good," Dr. Song said, moving the wand around. "Baby's measuring right on track, heartbeat is strong. The placenta," she paused, studying the screen. "The placenta is still low, but it hasn't gotten worse. We'll monitor it closely over the next few weeks." "And if it doesn't move?" Nala asked. "Then we schedule the surgery. But we have time. The baby is healthy, you're healthy despite the stress, and we have excellent facilities here to handle any complications." Nala stared at the screen, watching her baby move, tiny fists, kicking legs, a profile that she could almost make out. Do you want to know the gender? Dr. Song asked. Nala's breath caught. She hadn't let herself ask before, hadn't wanted to know because knowing made it more real, made the baby more of a person and less of a concept. But now, lying here in Jin's fortress with threats looming and impossible choices ahead, she suddenly desperately wanted to know. Yes, she whispered. Dr. Song smiled. It's a girl. The world tilted. A girl. She was having a daughter. Nala's hands went protectively to her belly, and she felt tears slide down her temples. A daughter who would grow up in a world that would judge her for being mixed race, for being black and Korean, for having a body that might be plus size like her mother's, or might be thin like her father's side of the family. A daughter who deserved better than this, better than threats and danger and parents who were on opposite sides of a legal war. Nala. Jin's voice. She'd forgotten he was still in the room. She turned her head and found him standing beside the examination table, his hand hovering over hers where it rested on her belly. A daughter, he said, and his voice broke on the word. Yes, we're having a daughter. I'm having a daughter, Nala corrected. She cut herself off because she didn't know how to finish that sentence. What was Jin, the father, the criminal she was testifying against, the man keeping her safe, all of the above? Jin's hand finally settled over hers, both of them touching the place where their daughter was growing. I'm going to protect her, Jin said, both of you, no matter what it costs. Even your freedom? Nala asked quietly. Jin's eyes met hers. Even that? Dr. Song cleared her throat. I'll give you two some privacy. Ms. Davis, get some rest. I'll check on you in the morning. She left, and Nala was alone with Jin, and the sound of their daughter's heartbeat still echoing from the ultrasound machine. You should rest, Jin said finally, but he didn't move his hand. I should call Agent Tors back, tell her I'm having a girl, ask her what happens to my testimony if I refuse to show up. You won't refuse. Won't I? Nala looked at him. You just promised to protect our daughter no matter the cost. What if the cost is me not testifying? What if keeping her safe means keeping you out of prison? Jin's jaw clenched. We're not there yet. But we will be. In 6 weeks I have to make a choice. Then we have 6 weeks to find whoever threatened you and eliminate the threat. And if we can't, if the threat doesn't go away, if the only way to keep her safe is to... We'll figure it out, Jin interrupted. Together, like you said you wanted, equal partners. Nala laughed bitterly. We've never been equal partners, Jin. You've always been the one with the power. Then let me use that power to protect you. That's not partnership, that's dependence. Then what do you want from me, Nala? Jin's frustration finally broke through. You want me to defend you, I'm defending you. You want me to put you first, you're first. You want me to choose you over my organization, I'm choosing you. What more do you need? I need to know if this is real or if you're just doing this because I'm pregnant. The question hung between them. Jin stared at her for a long moment, then he did something that shocked her completely. He got down on his knees beside the examination table, the same way he had at the clinic, and pressed his forehead against her belly. I loved you before I knew about the baby, he said quietly. I looked for you for 6 months before I knew. I would have kept looking for 6 more years if that's what it took. Yes, finding out you're pregnant changed things, made the stakes higher, made me more desperate. But Nala, I didn't need you to be carrying my child to want you back. I just needed to pull my head out of my ass long enough to realize what I'd lost. Nala's throat tightened. But you did lose me, she whispered. And I testified against you. I told prosecutors everything. How do we come back from that? I don't know, Jin admitted. But I know we have 6 weeks to try. 6 weeks before you have to choose. 6 weeks to figure out if there's a version of this where we're both on the same side. And if there's not, if it comes down to your freedom or my conscience. Jin lifted his head and looked at her with those dark, intense eyes that had first captured her attention in a bookshop 3 years ago. Then you do what you have to do, he said, and I'll love you anyway. The words hit her like a physical blow. You never said that before, Nala said. In 2 years of marriage you never once said you loved me. I know. So why now? Because I finally understand what I'll lose if I don't. Jin's hand tightened on hers. Because I spent 6 months in hell thinking you were dead. Because I wasted 2 years being too proud to say the words, and I'm not wasting another second. He stood, leaning over her on the examination table, his face inches from hers. I love you, Nala Davis. I love your strength. I love your dignity. I love the way you look at me like you can see right through all my bullshit. I love your body. Every curve, every soft place, every inch that my family was too stupid to appreciate. I love that you're carrying our daughter and that she'll have your fire and your grace. And I love that you hate me right now because it means you still feel something. Nala's breath came in short gasps. Jin. You don't have to say it back. You don't have to forgive me. You don't even have to like me. But I need you to know that I love you, that I've always loved you. And that nothing you testify about, nothing you reveal, nothing you do will change that. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate and claiming and full of 6 months of loss and grief and longing. And God help her, Nala kissed him back. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer despite the belly between them. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious, something he was terrified of losing again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Nala realized she was crying. I hate you, she whispered. I know. I hate that you make me feel this way. I know. I hate that I still want you even though you've done terrible things. I know that too. Nala's hand went to her belly, feeling their daughter move. What are we going to do, Jin? We're going to keep you safe, keep her safe, and then we're going to figure out the rest. That's not a plan. It's the only plan I have. A knock on the door interrupted them, one of Jin's men. Sir, we've completed the security sweep. We found something you need to see. Jin's expression hardened instantly. What? A tracking device in Ms. Davis's shoe, GPS enabled, been active for at least 3 weeks. The blood drained from Nala's face. 3 weeks, she repeated, but I only saw Agent Tors 2 weeks ago, which means someone's been tracking you since before you even knew I was looking for you, Jin finished grimly. He turned to his man. Run the signal, find out where it's been transmitting to. Already on it, sir, but sir, the man hesitated. The device is military grade, expensive, not something your average criminal would have access to. Then who? Nala asked. Jin's expression was deadly. Someone with resources, someone with connections, someone who's been planning this for longer than we thought. He pulled out his phone and started typing rapidly. What are you doing? Nala asked. Calling in every favor I have, every contact, every resource, because whoever did this just made a fatal mistake. What mistake? Jin looked at her, and his smile was absolutely terrifying. They threatened my family, and I burned down empires for less. The tracking device sat on Jin's desk like an accusation. Small, sleek, sophisticated enough that Nala had carried it in her shoe for 3 weeks without noticing the extra weight, without feeling the foreign object pressed against her heel every time she walked. Someone had been watching her every movement for almost a month. The signal's been transmitting to a server in Hong Kong, Yiwon said, his laptop open on the desk. Routed through multiple proxies, but our tech team traced it back to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The company's owned by, he paused, his expression grim, by another shell company, and that one's owned by another. It's layers on layers, sir. Jin's jaw clenched. Keep digging, I don't care how many layers there are, find out who's at the bottom. Yes, sir. Nala sat in a chair by the window, watching the conversation unfold. She'd changed out of the hospital gown into clothes someone had provided, maternity leggings and an oversized sweater that actually fit her plus-size frame comfortably. Small messes. 3 weeks, she said quietly. 3 weeks ago I met with Agent Tors for the first time since entering protection. We met at a cafe in Gangnam. Is that when they planted it? Jin turned to her. You said the meetings before that were at the prosecutor's office. Yes, secure building, metal detectors, the whole thing. Which means they couldn't plant anything inside the building. They had to wait until you were somewhere public. Jin's eyes narrowed. Who knew about the cafe meeting? Just Agent Tors and me. We arranged it the night before via encrypted text. Encrypted, Jin repeated. but someone still knew where you'd be. Which means either Agent Tors told someone, or your phones were compromised, Jin finished, both of them, yours and hers. The implications settled over the room like ice water. If they have access to Agent Tors' communications, Nala said slowly, then they know everything, every meeting, every testimony session, every safe house location. Which means the prosecutor's office has been compromised from the inside. Jin pulled out his phone. I'm making a call. To who? Someone who owes me a very large favor. Someone with access to federal databases who can run background checks on everyone in the prosecutor's office without tipping them off. That's illegal. Jin's smile was sharp. Nala, I run a criminal empire. Illegal is my baseline. Do you want answers or do you want to maintain plausible deniability? She should say no. Should insist on doing this the legal way, the right way, the way that didn't compromise her testimony even further. But someone had threatened her baby. Make the call, she said. Jin stepped out into the hallway, his voice dropping to a murmur as he spoke in rapid Korean. Yi-won glanced at Nala, then away again, clearly uncomfortable being alone with the woman who'd testified against his boss. You can leave, Nala said. I'm not going to run, where would I even go? I'm not worried about you running, Ms. Davis. I'm worried about someone getting in. You have an entire security team, guards, cameras, walls. And someone still managed to plant a tracking device in your shoe. Forgive me if I'm not entirely confident in perimeter security right now. Fair point. Nala shifted in her chair, trying to find a comfortable position. The baby was active tonight, rolling and kicking like she could sense her mother's stress. Does it hurt? Yi-won asked suddenly. Nala looked at him in surprise. What? The baby, when she moves like that, does it hurt? Not hurt exactly, just pressure, like someone's rearranging furniture inside me. Nala's hand went to her belly, feeling a particularly strong kick. She's got her father's stubborn streak already, won't settle down. Something flickered across Yi-won's face. Mr. Park has been different since you left. Harder, colder, we all thought. He cut himself off. Thought what? Thought he'd move on, find another wife, someone more suitable to the family. Nala's throat tightened. Someone thinner, you mean someone Korean? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Nala looked out the window at the dark mountains. I know what his family thought of me, what they probably still think, that I was an embarrassment, too black, too big, too American. Yi-won was quiet for a long moment. For what it's worth, I never thought that, and neither did Mr. Park. He had a funny way of showing it. He's not good at showing things, feelings, vulnerability. His father raised him to believe that emotion was weakness. That's not an excuse. No, Yi-won agreed, but it's an explanation, and for the last 6 months watching him tear himself apart looking for you, I think he finally figured out that losing you was worse than any weakness showing emotion could bring. Before Nala could respond, Jin returned. His expression was thunderous. What? Nala asked, her heart sinking. My contact ran preliminary background checks on everyone with access to your case. Most came back clean, but Agent Michelle Tors, Jin's smile was deadly. She has a brother, Marcus Tors. Want to guess what Marcus does for a living? What? He's a logistics coordinator for Hayes Shipping, which is owned by Alexei Hayes, Nala finished, her blood running cold. The Russian syndicate boss, the one whose brother is the surgeon I might need. Not just owned by. Marcus Tors has been on Hayes's payroll for 6 years, and 3 months ago, right around when you first contacted the prosecutor's office, Marcus deposited $50,000 into an offshore account. The implications crashed over Nala like a wave. Agent Tors sold me out, she whispered. She gave her brother my information and he gave it to Hayes. Which means Hayes has known about your testimony from the beginning, has known you were my wife, has known about the baby. Jin's hands clenched into fists, and now he's playing a very dangerous game. What game? He's using you as leverage. Think about it, you need his brother for the surgery, I need his cooperation to keep you safe, and he needs me out of the way so he can take over my territory. It's elegant, really. Get you to testify against me, put me in prison, and then graciously offer to save your life in exchange for, what? Control of my shipping routes, my weapons contacts, everything I've built. Nala felt sick. But that means Agent Tors has been working against me this whole time. Every meeting, every testimony session, she's been feeding information to her brother. Which also means the prosecutor's office might not even know. If Tors was careful, if she kept the leak contained to herself, then the rest of the case could still be clean. Or it could all be compromised. Nala stood, packing despite the ache in her lower back. Either way, I can't trust them anymore, can't trust my protection, can't trust that going to trial will actually result in justice instead of just making things worse. Jin watched her pace, his expression unreadable. So what do you want to do? I don't know, Nala's voice broke. I don't know how to fix this. I thought I was doing the right thing, thought turning you in was about justice, about stopping the violence, but now it's all twisted and corrupt and I don't even know who the good guys are anymore. There are no good guys, Nala. There's just people making choices and living with the consequences. That's bleak. That's realistic. Nala stopped packing and turned to face him. If I don't testify, your entire case might fall apart. The prosecutors have been building it around my testimony, without me. Without you, they have financial records, intercepted communications, physical evidence. It might not be as strong, but they could still make a case. But they'd lose, you'd walk free. Probably. And dozens of victims wouldn't get justice. Jin's expression hardened. Those victims existed long before you decided to be a witness. Their suffering isn't your responsibility. Isn't it? I was married to you for 2 years. I looked the other way. I enjoyed the money and the lifestyle while people were dying because of your organization. I'm complicit, Jin. You're a victim, Jin corrected. You were isolated, controlled, cut off from information. You didn't know the full extent. I knew enough. Nala's hand went to her belly. I knew you were dangerous. I knew people feared you. I just didn't let myself think too hard about why. The baby kicked and Nala winced. Jin noticed immediately. What's wrong? Nothing, she's just active. You're in pain. I'm pregnant, everything hurts. Jin crossed the room and gently took her arm. Sit down, you've been on your feet too long. I'm fine. Nala, his voice was firm. Sit, please. She sat, mostly because her back was killing her, and standing was becoming uncomfortable. Jin knelt in front of her, becoming a habit, this kneeling, and started unlacing her shoes. What are you doing? Taking off your shoes, elevating your feet, basic pregnancy care that you're too stubborn to do yourself. He slid off her shoes, different ones than the pair with the tracking device, those had been bagged as evidence, and lifted her feet onto an ottoman. His hands were gentle on her swollen ankles, his thumbs pressing carefully into the arch of her foot. Nala hated how good it felt. You don't have to do this, she said. I want to. Why? Because I'm carrying your baby, because you feel guilty, because you're in pain and I can help. Jin's eyes met hers. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. But it was complicated. Everything about this situation was impossibly, devastatingly complicated. I need to make a decision, Nala said quietly, about the testimony, about what I'm going to do. You have time. Do I? The trial is in 6 weeks, the baby's due in 8, the surgery might be needed in 2. Time is the one thing I don't have. Jin's hands stilled on her feet. What do you want, Nala? Not what's right, not what's just, what do you actually want? The question was so simple and so impossible. What did she want? She wanted her baby to be safe. She wanted Jin to be a better man than he was. She wanted the victims of his crimes to get justice. She wanted to not have to choose between those things. I want this to be over, she whispered. It will be, one way or another, in 6 weeks this will be over. And then what? If you go to prison, what happens to us, to our daughter? Then you raise her, you give her a good life, you tell her, Jin's voice cracked slightly, you tell her that her father loved her even if he couldn't be there. Tears burned Nala's eyes. And if you don't go to prison, if I refuse to testify and you walk free, what happens then? Then we figure out how to be a family despite everything. We try, we fail, we try again. We see if there's a version of this where we're both on the same side. I don't know if there is. Then we find out together. Before Nala could respond, Yi-Won's laptop pinged urgently. "Sir," he said, his voice tight, "we've got movement, multiple vehicles approaching the estate, fast." Jin was on his feet instantly. "How many?" "5 cars, heavily armed based on the thermal signatures. They're coming up the private road." "Hayes," Jin said coldly. "He's making his move. How long until they reach the gates?" 3 minutes. Jin pulled out his phone and started issuing rapid-fire orders. "Lock down the estate, full protocol, get Dr. Song to the medical wing with Nala. I want armed guards on every entrance and—" "Jin," Nala's voice cut through his commands. "What if they're not here to attack? What if they're here to talk?" "Hayes doesn't talk, he makes power plays." "Then let him make his play where you control the environment. Let him come inside, hear what he wants. Maybe we can negotiate." "Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near Alexei Hayes. He's going to find out about me eventually, about the baby, about everything. Wouldn't you rather control when and how that happens?" Jin stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "You want to sit down with the man who's been threatening you?" "I want to know what he wants, and I want to see his face when he realizes you know about his brother, about Agent Tors, about the tracking device. Maybe if we have leverage we can." "No," Jin said flatly, "I'm not using you as bait." "I'm not bait, I'm a witness. I have information. And right now information is the only currency that matters." "Nala—" 2 minutes, Yi-Won interrupted. Nala stood, her hands on her belly. "Jin, I've been running and hiding for 6 months. I'm tired. I'm 7 months pregnant, I'm scared, but I'm not helpless, and I'm not going to spend the rest of this pregnancy locked in a room while you make all the decisions." Jin looked at her, really looked at her. At the stubborn set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes, the protective way she held their daughter even while proposing something incredibly dangerous. "If anything happens to you—" "Then you burn down his empire like you promised," Nala finished. "But Jin, nothing's going to happen because you're going to be there, and so will your guards, and so will I, making it very clear that I'm not a pawn anymore." For a long moment, Jin didn't move. Then he nodded once, sharp, decisive. "Fine, but you stay behind me. You don't speak unless I give you permission. And at the first sign of trouble, Yi-Won gets you out of here. Understood?" "Understood." "Sir, they're at the gates," Yi-Won said. Jin's expression went absolutely cold, absolutely lethal, the expression of a man who'd killed before and would kill again without hesitation. "Let them in," he said, "but have snipers on every entrance. If Hayes so much as looks at Nala wrong, I want him dead before he finishes the thought." Yi-Won nodded and spoke into his radio in rapid Korean. Jin turned to Nala and took her hand, the first time he'd voluntarily touched her in anything other than a medical or protective context since she'd left him. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. "And Nala, if this goes wrong, if something happens, I need you to know that meeting you was the best thing I ever did, even if I was too stupid to appreciate it at the time." Nala's throat tightened. "Jin. And I need you to know that our daughter is going to be perfect, because she's half you, and you're the strongest person I've ever met." Before Nala could respond, the front door opened. Alexei Hayes walked in like he owned the place. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of dangerous charisma that made people instinctively step back. His suit was expensive, his smile was sharp, and his eyes went immediately to Nala. "Well," he said in accented English, "the mysterious Mrs. Park, or should I say Ms. Davis, I've heard so much about you." Jin stepped between them, blocking Hayes's view. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you're on my property before I have my men remove you in pieces." Hayes's smile widened. "So hostile, Park, and here I came to talk business." "You came to threaten my wife." "Ex-wife," Hayes corrected. "Or so the paperwork says, though I notice she's very pregnant. Congratulations, by the way, is it yours?" Jin's hand moved toward his weapon. Hayes noticed and laughed. "Easy, Park, I'm not here to fight, I'm here to make a deal." "I don't make deals with people who threaten my family." "Don't you?" Hayes pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. "Because according to my sources, your family has been working with federal prosecutors to dismantle your entire organization. That sounds like a threat to me." He turned the phone toward them. On the screen was a photograph of Nala entering the prosecutor's office, clear as day. 6 months of testimony, Hayes continued. Everything from shipping routes to weapons caches to financial records. She's been very thorough, very detailed, very damaging. Jin's expression didn't change, but Nala felt his hand tighten on hers. So here's my offer, Hayes said, his smile fading into something colder. Ms. Davis withdraws her testimony. The case falls apart, you walk free, and in exchange my brother performs the surgery she needs. Everyone wins. Except the victims of Jin's crimes, Nala said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Hayes's eyes flicked to her. Ah, she speaks. Tell me, Ms. Davis, are you really willing to die on this hill? Are you willing to risk your baby's life for the sake of abstract justice? Are you really willing to blackmail a pregnant woman? Nala shot back. What does that say about your brother's medical ethics? My brother does what I tell him to do, just like Agent Tor's brother did what she told him, just like everyone in this room does what their loyalty demands. The pieces clicked into place. You recruited Agent Tor's, Nala said. You found out about her brother working for you and you used that to turn her, to get access to my testimony. Very good, Hayes said, though I prefer to think of it as offering her a choice, loyalty to her career or loyalty to her family. She chose family, can you blame her? I can blame her for selling out a witness, Nala said, for compromising an entire case, for putting me and my baby at risk just to help you take down a rival. Hayes shrugged. Business is business, and right now business says you need something only I can provide. The question is, what are you willing to pay for it? Jin stepped forward, his voice absolutely deadly. Here's what's going to happen, Hayes. You're going to leave my property. You're going to call off whatever surveillance you have on Nala, and you're going to forget you ever knew about her testimony. Or what? Or I release every piece of information I have on your organization to the same prosecutors Nala's been talking to. Financial records, shipping manifests, names and addresses of every person in your network. I burn down your empire the same way you're trying to burn down mine. Hayes's expression flickered, just for a moment, with uncertainty. You're bluffing, he said. Try me. The two men stared at each other, and Nala realized she was watching two apex predators circle each other, trying to determine who would strike first. Then Hayes smiled again. You know what, I believe you would. You're just crazy enough to destroy yourself if it means taking me down too. Finally, you're understanding. But here's the problem, Park. You can threaten me all you want, you can release all the information you have, but at the end of the day, Ms. Davis still needs surgery, still needs a surgeon who can save her and the baby, and there are only 3 qualified doctors in Asia. I control one, you control 2, but if anything happens to me, if I so much as get a parking ticket, my people have instructions to make sure those 2 doctors become unavailable. Permanently. Jin's jaw clenched. So we're at an impasse, Hayes continued. You can't move against me without risking Ms. Davis's life. I can't move against you without triggering your scorched earth protocol. Which means we need to negotiate. I don't negotiate with terrorists. No, you negotiate with businessmen, and right now I'm offering you a business deal. Ms. Davis withdraws her testimony. I provide the surgeon. We both walk away clean. And the victims, Nala asked. The people Jin hurt, what about justice for them? Hayes looked at her with something almost like pity. Ms. Davis, in our world there is no justice, there's only survival, and right now you need to decide what matters more, punishing your ex-husband or protecting your baby. The words hit like a physical blow because he was right. He was absolutely, devastatingly right. If Nala testified, Jin went to prison, the case succeeded, justice was served. But Hayes would make sure the surgeons Jin controlled became unavailable. And if the placenta didn't move, if she needed the surgery, the only option would be Hayes's brother, which meant being completely under Hayes's control. If Nala withdrew her testimony, Jin walked free. The case fell apart. Hayes provided the surgeon. But dozens of victims got no justice, and Nala lived with the guilt of choosing her baby's life over their right to see Jin face consequences. There was no good choice. There was only impossible and slightly less impossible. I need time, Nala said finally, to think, to decide. You have 24 hours, Hayes said. After that, I assume you've chosen the hard way. And Ms. Davis, the hard way ends with you dead on an operating table because no surgeon was available when you needed one. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Park, congratulations again on the baby. I hope you get to meet her before you're arrested and spend the rest of your life in prison." And then he was gone, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. The silence that followed was suffocating. Nala stood there, her hands on her belly, feeling her daughter move inside her, and realized that no matter what choice she made, someone was going to get hurt. Either she betrayed the victims, or she risked her baby. Either she saved Jin, or she served justice. There was no third option. There was no magical solution where everyone got what they deserved. There was only the choice, and 6 weeks to make it. Jin turned to her, his expression raw. "Nala." "Don't," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't say anything, not right now, I need to think." She walked out of the room, down the hallway, toward the bedroom someone had prepared for her. Behind her she heard Jin giving orders, increasing security, running background checks, planning contingencies. Always planning, always strategizing, always trying to control the uncontrollable. But this wasn't something he could control. This was Nala's choice. And as she lay down on the bed, her hands on her belly, feeling her daughter kick and roll and live, Nala realized she had no idea what the right answer was. She only knew that in 6 weeks she'd have to stand in a courtroom and choose. And that whatever she chose would haunt her for the rest of her life. The baby kicked again, hard, and Nala closed her eyes. "I'm so sorry, little one," she whispered. "I'm so sorry you got caught in the middle of this." Outside she could hear Jin's voice carrying down the hallway, commanding, controlled, absolutely certain that he could fix this. But some things couldn't be fixed. Some choices had no right answer. And as Nala drifted into an exhausted sleep, her last thought was a desperate prayer. Please let there be a third option. Please let there be a way to save everyone. But deep down she knew the truth. There was no third option. There was only the choice. And time was running out. Don't forget to like this video if you're loving Nala and Jin's impossible love story. Comment below with what you think Nala should do, testify and risk everything, or withdraw and save her baby. And subscribe because more is coming soon, and you won't believe the twist that changes everything. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when Nala discovers the real reason Hayes wants Jin's empire destroyed, and why her baby might be the key to ending this war for good. See you soon, stay blessed, stay bold, and remember, love is messy but it's always worth fighting for.